In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. How are you, my lovely students? I hope you all are doing well and enjoying the virtual learning system of Pakistan International School, Taif. Dear students, as you know that this is biology class and you are in grade 8th. We are doing chapter number 3, Biodiversity. Today, we will see next topic of biodiversity, that is conservation of biodiversity. I'm your teacher, Ms. Shazia. Dear students, what is conservation of biodiversity? Conservation means, in the previous classes, you have also studied that conservation means to remain safe or to just keep it safe for a long period of time, to remain constant. So let's take a look at how conservation of biodiversity is to be done, or we have to keep that safe. Why and how? We will see that in this topic. Dear students, as we are gonna study chapter biodiversity, so I think you know the term biodiversity. So let's take a review of that. Bio means life and diversity means various, variety. So it refers to all the variety of life, isn't it? Which can be found on the earth, anywhere in the plant. That can be the plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms. All type of living organisms are included in biodiversity. So as we know that on the earth, on various places, biodiversity is having different and great variety on different places according to the ecosystems and environmental conditions, as well as according to their habitats. They are uh, distributed in different places of the earth. So regarding biodiversity, there is very, very important term, that is species. What is a species? Species is a singular word. So species, or sometimes where it is pronounced as species. So species, as you have studied this before, that a group of organisms, it can be fungi, microorganisms, animals or plants, any type of groups they can be, so which can interbreed freely among one another. So one group of organisms can be interbreed with other group of other animals of the same group, and they produce fertile offspring. Like the offspring, what they produce, the offspring must be fertile. Fertile means they are able to produce the next generation. So biodiversity means variety of life. If you can see in Pakistan, or in because we are concerned about Pakistan, so we are having a different varieties, or we are having great biodiversity in different regions of Pakistan regarding plants and animals of both. And that can be also, like if we consider whole of the world, large number of species and varieties of living organisms are present on different places. But what happened to this biodiversity? Why is it important to study here about the conservation of biodiversity? That during the last century, loss of biodiversity has been increasingly observed. In the modern era, due to human actions, species and ecosystems are threatened with destruction to an extent rarely seen in the early history. Nowadays, by human actions, like by human activities, species and the species, where do they live? They make ecosystems. So ecosystems also, they are threatened, like they are in danger with destruction to an extent that rarely seen in early history. In early history, lots of varieties of organisms were found on the earth, but now, because we are having great human influence and human impact of the ecosystems of the world, so we can have great destruction of these kind of species. So here, species and ecosystem, actually one is there. So ecosystems are greatly changed now due to the human activities, as well as natural disasters are there, but more impact is due to human activity. So when the ecosystems are changed by some changings which can occur through human activity actions or by natural disasters, the species can be extinct and it can be endangered. Extinct means a species that no longer lives in an ecosystem. There are lots of species which are no longer present on the earth now. So what does it mean? Extinct is forever. So that organism cannot um, reproduce again in the near future. So extinct means in an ecosystem a species called extinct when there is no doubt that the last individual of that species has died in that ecosystem. There is example of dodo, platypus, platypus. They are actually birds, duck-billed platypus, that is called duck-billed platypus, that is having beak like duck, that was found in Australia, but now that is extinct. Dodo, it also it is a bird. It was a bird. Like we are having common example of, now we call them dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. So this is a great example which we know. They are totally extinct. You have seen lots of movies on that, like Jurassic Park and etc. But they are not present yet, any of the species like that. So it means they are extinct species. If we talk about endangered species, so endangered which are near to the extinction. The species which is at risk of extinction in near future, like after some years, the species can completely died off, just to vanished out from the earth. But right now there are some organisms of that species present, so that's why it is called endangered species, means that is in great danger. That is also called threatened species. So we can see some examples of endangered and extinct species from in Pakistan. We are having Marco Polo sheep, Indus River dolphin, and brown bear, snow leopard, musk deer. These animals are endangered species in Pakistan, and they are kept in protected areas of Himalayas mountains, or there are some parks, national parks, and natural. These are national, but natural parks are there, uh, and they are called as protected areas. Like nobody can hunt over there. Nobody can um, just uh, give harm to these animals, and these animals just breeding over there, and their population is increasing in that areas. Those are called protected areas. If we talk about some extinct species in Pakistan, so Indian one-horned rhinoceros, in Indian one horn, because that's also present in India and Pakistan. And if we talk about Indian subcontinent, so Pakistan and India was one country, so that was present in both of the countries. So in Pakistan, that is extinct now. White leopard and the Indian wild ass, that is also extinct now, and black buck almost it's going to be extinct. So there is a great role of human beings in destruction of biodiversity. So what is the impact of human beings on biodiversity? We will see that like in this industrialization, in this industrialization era, what happened? Smoke from factories, from vehicles, these CFCs sprays, aerosol sprays, um, like pesticides, insecticides, some radioactive elements. They emit radiations, as well as deforestation, burning of fuels. They also gonna change the formation of ozone layer in the stratosphere. So by that, the radiations come in the atmosphere, the lowest layer, troposphere, but it cannot move back. Like ultraviolet radiations and infrared radiations, they come through this thin ozone layer. So that is called ozone layer depletion. So what happened? Just a few rays goes outside, but most of them traps inside. So while they trap inside, so the temperature of this atmosphere is going to be raised. And so what happened by this raising of the temperature? Glaciers are melting, and floods are there. Land part is going to be just sink under the water, and destruction of habitat, and lots of other threats are for biodiversity. So not only for human beings, human impact is very dangerous, but also for all other life as well. So we will talk about in detail in after a few minutes. So if we talk about the great role of human, that is due to overpopulation. Overpopulation means uh, like more human beings are adding into this that like confined area than the specific area. So almost 10,000 years ago, if we see 5 million people were living on the earth, but right now more than 7 billion, almost near to about 8 billion people are living on the earth. So if we see here at 1350 and 1700, 600 million people were there, 1800 year. So that is, and 1900, now 1.6, 1950, 2.4 billion. And now in 1985, that is, and 2020, now almost 8 billion people are living on the earth. Or just on the land part. And land part is decreasing day by day due to melting of glaciers and more floods and more rising of that sea level. So that is alarming situation, that more than 260,000 people, the persons are adding into this world per day. If we talk about in minutes, so 180 persons per minute are just adding in this world. That is too much. People are adding in this world. So that's confined area, the restricted area. You can see the increasing population in the world. Like the land part is just the same. It is not increasing, but people are increasing over there. So like due to the more need of those people, just we are destroying the habitats of biodiversity or other living organism. We are going to harm them. Okay, if we see some major causes of a species extinction, means that extinction or death of a species. So we see these are some major causes of that. Like first of all, hunting. Yes, major cause. Habitat destruction due to deforestation and some other natural disasters as well. And species introduction. If some new species is introduced, we will talk all of them in detail, and some other are 2%. So most is species introduction and habitat destruction all as well. So if we see the decline of different species from 1970 to 210, like 2010, when it was 2010, now it is 2020, 10 years earlier. So we can see that terrestrial species are decreased. Minus means decreased 39%. Freshwater species are decreased 76%, and sea species, marine species, just decreased 39%. So that destruction or that decline of the species is increasing day by day, and that is too much amount. That percentage is very high. So let's talk about some major causes. Like we are having an overpopulation problem. We have talked about in detail before. So overpopulation, by overpopulation, there is more need of human beings for homes, houses, for food as well, for shelter as well. So for shelter, we have to cut or we have to deforest the lands, we have to cut the trees, and as well as for production of more food, we have to grow more crops. Due to the more crops, we have to use more fertile land. Due to that fertile land, we have to again cut the trees and utilize that land for other purpose, building homes, like so that is shelter, and food is the major needs of people. So for that reason, and somehow urban uh, uh, increase of urban areas, like the people from rural areas, from villages, they move to the cities, and where there are like forests were there or anything like which makes the habitat of those organisms, so that can be destroyed. We can see the habitat loss. We'll see that again in detail: deforestation, cutting of trees like overhunting, introduction or removal of some species. We'll talk about pollution, and we'll talk about climate change. Let's talk about habitat destruction first. Habitat destruction, it means clearing of habitats for agricultural purpose. If you see this view behind, that is world's wildlife habitat. Like wildlife is confined here. There are trees for that is trees are homeland for the birds, for living organisms, for insects, for microorganisms. But for a human encroachment, like for human usages, for agriculture, for different type of production, for urban sprawl, like villagers are moving towards the cities, that is for logging also. Maybe you have talked about just studied about logging in water logging in social studies, when the land is uh, um, uh, when the land is going to be unfertile, as well as for mining purpose as well. We all use this land, and that become the cause of habitat destruction, and that is actually the primary cause of species extinction worldwide. So you can see here the animals are very much scared, and they're worried about their habitat, where they will go. Sometimes they move to other parts of the places, but most of the time they died. If you see here, there is habitat destruction due to deforestation. So where they live, these animals will live now, and where they will go. Maybe, definitely they will be hunted more easily. Next, we'll talk about deforestation. So if you see the this one, the background preview, that you can see that first of all, there was, look, there are lots of trees, there is forestation, like now the trees are cut down for different purposes, for wood purpose, for like agriculture purpose. So that is a deforestation. So forested land has been changed into deforested land. So cutting down of trees for conversion of a forest to non-forest land. So what are the causes of D? D means no, forestation means forest. So there was no forest, no trees over there. So first of all, urban development, like the cities development to building the houses and plazas and other restaurants, hotels, etc. For wood, wood is very much important for burning purposes. So in developing countries, almost 3 billion people, 3 billion people, like in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, where the countries are developing. So 3 billion people are using wood for heating and cooking purposes. For agricultural land as well, for growing more food, they have to destroy the forests, they cut the forests, as well as they need wood pulp for paper making. Like now we are well aware of paper making processes, so wood pulp is used for that. So for that reason, we have to cut lots of trees. Economical use, you know, cutting of trees, selling of them for different purposes, for buildings, for furnitures, for wood pulp, and for it gives lot much economical uh, benefits for the people. That's why they used to cut the trees. And they also get cash from certain fruits, spices, sugar, tobacco, soap, rubber, paper, and cloth. Uh, mm, for that reason, they destroy the forest and cut that, because all things are made by the forest, by means by the trees. What are the effects of deforestation? Very major effect is that it affects amount of water in soil and moisture in the atmosphere. So if the trees were not be there, so what happened? The soil will be dried off very soon, and much water will be evaporated. By the evaporation due to the heat of the sun, what happened? Moisture in the atmosphere will be decreased, because the clouds will not be formed due to that, because clouds will be formed when there are lots of trees on the earth, and the trees on regular basis they evaporate the water by transpiration. Number second is soil erosion. As we know that trees and forests that keep the soil intact, keep the mountains, rocks intact. Like their roots are just penetrated deep in the soil, and the soil will not be eroded or will not be washed out with the water, with the rainwater. So if there were no trees, if there will be rain, so there will be soil erosion, and that soil having essential nutrients uh, for lots of organisms, including plants as well. So if there will be less trees or no trees, so essential nutrients will be also washed off with the water running down. By that, there will be these essential nutrients, with the heavy rainfall, they will just collected into the river beds, and the river beds will be choked up with mud and silt, which will cause floods in the near area, where there will be habitat destruction, for not only for human beings but for other living organisms as well. Due to less trees, there is decrease in transpiration as well. We know that process of transpiration because in 7th grade we have studied about transpiration, like removal of water from the trees. So there will be no trees, no transpiration, no cloud formation, and that reduces the rainfall as well. And definitely by the deforestation, by all these effects as well, and the major will be habitat destruction. We know that when we visit a very greening area, so we find lots of microorganisms, lots of smaller plants, lots of types of birds over there, animals over there, for example, in the forest. So if we cut the forest, so there will be habitat loss, like the place where the living organisms live, it will be lost and they will die or they will move to another place. Trees or forests are having great use, and that is healthy and beneficial for our ecosystems, like they extract carbon dioxide and pollutants from the air. In this industrialization era, we are having industries, vehicles, and lots of other things by which we get lots of chemicals into the atmosphere. We release them into the atmosphere as well as carbon dioxide. So if there will be more trees, so what will happen? The trees will extract or they will clean the air, and they will absorb in them carbon dioxide and other pollutants, and the air will be clean for us and other living organisms. They contribute to biosphere stability. Biosphere is, we have studied in chapter number 1, that is earth. So earth will be stable if we will have trees, because as much pollutants we are having in the atmosphere, they will extract for us and the air will be neat and clean for us. But it isn't happen, because with the increasing of these pollutants in the air, we are also decreasing the forest. We must increase them. We have to do reforestation, means again production of the forests. Very important as well, they increase aesthetic beauty and tourist attraction. So economical point of view, that is also very, very important for uh, any country's economical issue, that tourists attracted towards that, and how many tourists will come, they will get more economic benefit as well as aesthetic beauty. The person can be refreshed and energized when they see the forest or the greenery on the earth. But due to deforestation, these aspects are also harmed. Yes, less forest, so we cannot get lots of benefit from them. And if we just talk about KPK, like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Pakistan, that is in the northern areas, so forests are declining 1% per year almost. That is too much. So the preview, which is at the background of this slide, you can see that here is original intact forest extinct that was so many years before. You can see green, green, green everywhere, lots of greenery were there. But now, that is current situation. You can see lot trees are forests are present, but they are declining. If you see here in this region, you see this region, that is including India, Pakistan, and that is like Africa. In Africa, that is also declining. In America, that is also declining, and as well as in, we see in Asia, that is also declining. In Europe, that is also declining. So if you see here, uh, like we are declining, we are deforesting. That is going to change our climate as well. And if we see in the frontier province, you can see forest of coming years, we are having such type of situation. That is very, very dangerous and alarming situation for our biosphere. One of the major cause is overhunting for the destruction of biodiversity. So it is a significant cause of extinction of hundreds of species and endangerment of many species. By hunting, lots of species have been died and extinct from the world, but lots of are endangerment. They are in endangered situation, like they can extinct in near future. Like you can see this view, hunting of the animals, how the people do for like these tusks, and animals' tusks as well, their skin, leather, lots of purposes. The bones are also used for like we are destructing biodiversity. So, for example, endangered species are whale, ibex, urial, markhor in Pakistan. So you can see this is urial, ibex. They are some of the examples of endangered species in Pakistan, which is rapidly decreasing due to overhunting. Now we'll see introduction or removal of species. Introduction of species is also known exotic species, like the species which we introduce to that area, which we bring, which human brings from anywhere, from other place into that specific place. A removal means if we just remove all the animals from that species, from that area. So what there can be the drastic effects. For example, this is an example of eucalyptus tree, and that is actually very important for, that is used as in medicines, in medicinal point of view, like for breathing disorders, that can also be used. But that is also decreasing that what we can say, the species, other species of that specific area. Eucalyptus actually, that is exotic species, or that is introduced species, and that was introduced from Australia into Pakistan for certain purposes. That is not actually the native species, but that is introduced, that brought from Australia into Pakistan. So what is the effect of that? This plant uses lots of water. When it sucks lots of water from the ground, so what will happen? The water which is under this like under the surface, that is called water table, that is going to be decreased. So the level of underground water will be decreased, as well as it harms other plants which can which just smaller plants or other plants which grow nearby. You can see there are no plants nearby, they are far away, but near to them no plants, because they cannot just get proper water from that, because the eucalyptus can absorb more water. So if you see example of removal of species that is taken from the animals, that is a starfish. So what can happen? Starfish eat mussel. This is mussel, like the shells. These are mussels. So if we remove all the sea stars from the ocean region, so what will happen? You will We will remove the starfish. So what will happen to this species, mussel species? Definitely that will increase too much, because there is no other predator to eat this one. So this will increase more rapidly. These mussels prey on small animals. These mussels prey on small animals, phytoplankton, zooplanktons, like those animals or plants which um float in the water. They eat those plants and animals. So definitely the other species of animals and plants can be extinct. They can be in the problem if you remove one species. So it means introduction of or removal of the species can change the biodiversity of that area. The next one is pollution. That is very important factor. Pollution is the introduction of contaminants into the natural environment that cause adverse change. Definitely you can see from this uh, factory, smoke is coming out, removal of smoke, like introduction of lots of chemicals into the atmosphere, like what happened to the plant, sorry, that bird, what is happening to that bird. So that can be happened, like it is a threat into biodiversity, like all forms of pollution pose a serious threat to biodiversity. It can be air pollution, land pollution, water pollution. So this is the effect of water pollution, you can see, because this is seagull and that eats smaller fishes, because sometimes it just stand in the water. So um, how, like that is the example of that, the animals just can eat or can engulf some of the plastic, some of the garbage from that area, so they can die. So like that the species can be extinct. Now we will see one of the major cause, that is climatic change. That can be done through from natural disasters as well, like volcano eruptions and from floods and like that. But mostly it is gonna happen through human activity. And that is the impact of biodiversity that is projected because progressively more significant threat to the living beings. So if we see here in 1735, what type of environment is that? And now look, the temperature is up to here. Now the temperature is gonna here in 21st century. So almost in the previous century, almost zero point 0.8 to 1 degree temperature has been increased. So that increase increasing temperature is having effect on the climate, and the climate change can have lots of effects like global warming. Global means earth, warming means warming up of the atmosphere, like increasing the temperature. So earth's temperature is going to be increased. By that, the glaciers, the north and south pole, are going to be melt, and by melting we are having floods in the rivers and oceans, and the sea level is going to be rise. Due to that, the land portion is going to sink in the world. So land portion is going to be decreased slowly. So dear students, these were some major causes which we have discussed in detail about the destruction or extinction or threatened biodiversity. Inshallah, in the next topic, we will see about how can we solve this problem, or how can we take some steps to protect these species. So actually, biodiversity, the diversity of life on the earth, which is essential to the healthy functioning of an ecosystem. So over exploitation, like over hunting, rapid population growth are some major causes as well. Um, so E.O. Wilson said that we are in the bottleneck of overpopulation and wasteful consumption that could push half of the Earth's species to extinction in this century. In this century, right, in the 21st century, it can happen. Like if there will be more overpollution, so we can half of the species can be extinct. That is threatened, an alarming situation for our globe, for our earth. So we have to save our earth. If we want to save our earth, we have to save biodiversity. Dear students, that's it for today. Inshallah, we will just talk about how can we solve this problem in the next lecture. Wish you all the best and good luck. Assalamu alaikum.